I'm going to give it a couple seconds here.
Is this live?
No.
We're gonna wait a couple of minutes for the rest to join.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Raised and Redeemed podcast. Today, I am joining you with my very best friend, aka my husband, and we're going to be discussing all things pregnancy, postpartum, and parenthood. So if you're interested in hearing about our journey so far, stay tuned for this episode. Alrighty, well, what's up, babe? I'm so glad that you joined me today. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much for inviting me, honey. I know that it's so hard to get on your show. It's scheduled out years in advance, so it's a privilege.
Now that I've become a mom, it actually is a little bit hard to get on the show because I'm so, my head is all over the place and it's mostly on things of motherhood and I don't know the direction of the show at this point. So that's a whole other conversation right now. I feel like I've been talking about orthodoxy and my head is on things of motherhood and Christianity and motherhood and the sanctification of that. And so I feel like my show used to be all about these intense testimonies, and I still want to include that, but I haven't been taking on I don't know, I'm kind of going on a little tangent, but I haven't been taking on as many guests as I once did because right now I don't know the direction of the show. But I wanted to have you on, of course, because we're going through this major life change together and both of our heads are so wrapped around this new phase of parenthood and just how amazing it has been. So I wanted to talk about that because my last episode that went live, I finally published the birth story, and it was only about a 20-minute episode because I had Mila here and she woke up part of the ways through it. So I wanted to have you on to just kind of go into those topics more in depth today, now that we're recording on a Saturday and we have Mama Tanya, Vitaliy's mom, watching her right now. So shout out to Mama Tanya. To just kind of dive into the first question, I want to reverse all the way back to July of 2023 when we found out that we were pregnant and ask you how you felt seeing the positive signs on the pregnancy test.
So the question is, did we find out in July or did we find out a lot later?
Oh, no, you're right. We conceived in July.
And then we found out some time later. I was excited. I was thrilled. I thought it was the best thing in the world. I've been dreaming about a moment like that forever. Mm-hmm. It's definitely something you don't prepare for. Maybe some people do, but going into something that's so unknown has a certain level of stress associated with it. But to me, it was mostly just excitement and thrill, and considering how strong you and I are and were and will be, it was just a no-brainer. It all made sense.
Yeah. I've loved watching you become a dad, and especially being a girl dad. I feel like it just suits you so well. At first, we didn't know, is it a boy? Is it a girl? We were just excited for this next chapter, and a part of us thought that we might be having a little Vincenzo, but then we found out it was a girl, and I just love seeing how much you've adapted to that girl dad role, and it just feels so natural for you to be a girl dad. I just love it.
I was going to say, I don't think I adapted to it. I think I was just made for this.
Yeah, you're made for this. Yeah. But of course, if we had a boy one day too, I think you would be made for that role.
Well, when we inevitably have a boy, that's going to be a different scenario. But no, it's the best thing. It's the best thing. And honestly, I think it teaches both you and I so many different things on so many different levels, whether it's motherhood or what it means to become a woman, what it means to raise a woman from a female perspective. Same thing goes for the dad. I just think we're in for something incredible, and I can't wait to see all of those moments unfold.
And selfishly, I feel so excited too that she's a little girl because I love all things Disney and princess in pink, and so I get to live those things with her, and yeah, you're in for it.
I've signed up for it since day one, and I ain't going back.
Yep. So, my next question, what were your thoughts on how my pregnancy went? Like, I know I was so afraid of pregnancy. I think I have a lot of fear around any kind of unknown, especially as it relates to like I'm physically experiencing this. But I think we had an idea of how pregnancy goes for people, and then like versus the actual situation of how my pregnancy went. Like, how was that for you? Because I know you got all these warnings of, oh gosh, like, watch out, she's going to be like this or she's going to treat you like this. And then, like, how did it actually go?
Yeah, I mean, none of that happened. All those people lied. I don't know exactly what anybody's going through. I mean, I guess, look, I mean, it is a question for you too. I'm curious to hear how that has gone for you. I think you've experienced a lot more changes in everything since the pregnancy, but
Yeah.
and during the pregnancy. For me, first of all, I was just grateful to have to have had an established environment for you to be able to do what you needed to do while pregnant, right? I mean, you weren't
Yeah.
at work, you weren't doing this or that. I mean, you were, securely nurtured in a household where
Yeah.
you kind of got to decide what you needed. Okay.
Yeah.
To me, it was just a level of responsibility that I haven't had before. But besides that, I think it was a pretty smooth, wonderful experience,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
Uh,
me too. I think the only stressors were like the fact that we moved twice while I was pregnant. Because so for those who don't know, we moved in all together in a big house with Vitaly's family so that we'd have that support system when Mila came, i.e., Mama Tanya watching Mila right now. And so we moved into a tiny apartment temporarily just for a couple months so that we could all transition into a big house together a couple months later. So it was really tough being a family of five with two dogs in a two-bedroom apartment for a few months, but then it was like we saw, the light at the end of the tunnel when we moved into our house, and so that was like a hard but like blessing filled situation.
sure,
and
sure.
and luckily, yeah, I did get to quit my business and everything when I got pregnant, and I've just been so blessed that I do have you, providing, so I didn't have to worry. You always told me, you're like, "You don't have to worry about money or anything like that. You just worry about taking care of this baby." You've told me that since I was pregnant, and now that I'm taking care of the baby as well. So I'm so blessed to have such a good provider for a husband as well.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have our respective roles, and we are freaking good at them. I mean,
Yeah.
look at you, gone through the whole pregnancy wonderfully, delivered the baby beautifully, raising. Uh, both of us are raising her, but you spend an infinite amount of time with her, and there's just something for everyone here. And I think, like I said, I think this experience has taught us so many different things, and so many more to go.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, babe. She's like a part of me now. Like, I don't know me without her.
Honestly, I feel the same way. Maybe not as deep of a level as the both of you, obviously, but honestly, it's just like life doesn't make sense otherwise.
No. Hey, everybody. First off, thank you so much for watching. Secondly, if you're enjoying this conversation, please support this show by liking, subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it with a friend. And now back to the episode.
No.
So, a more specific event was the day I gave birth. I definitely I hyped you up so much in the last episode because you just supported me so much through that, and I was so astounded that you weren't queasy, you didn't pass out, you were a champ. So I just want to hear from your perspective how that day was for you, like what it was like seeing me give birth.
It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I think, I would say that I'm a pretty queasy person, given the circumstance, but to me, there was like this end goal in front of me, this like end purpose that needed to unfold.
Yeah.
And so that was my focus. I wasn't really thinking, oh, this, that. it went how it was supposed to be. I was so confident with the nurse team and the doctor team and the
Mhm.
hospital itself and all the support that we've had. And so I was just excited to play my part in it. But like I said, the focus was a safe, healthy, timely delivery of the baby, and that was it. Everything else kind of was a blur at that point. But it was great. I mean, I am happy to have been a part of the process to begin with.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy to have been included in that experience. And it was totally unforgettable. I mean, there's just no words. I don't know if you remember any of what happened.
I talked extensively about it in the last episode, so the listeners kinda know how I felt. Like, I don't think I'd ever been more afraid in my entire life, and I went through some pretty traumatic things, but, like, giving birth for the first time, it's like you don't know how your body's going to handle that, like, what that's gonna feel like. It was like I said, it was, like, the scariest day of my life, and, thank God for the epidural because I didn't have to feel the pain after I got that, and, yeah, it's just crazy because when they first handed Mila to me, it all made sense, and I just felt, like, so relieved and like I just endured the hardest thing ever, and she endured it with me. It was like her and I just made it through this battle together, and we had
Yeah.
you there rooting us on and supporting us, and yeah, I definitely couldn't have done it without you, so that kinda goes into the next topic about, postpartum, and we had a lot of thoughts about like how postpartum was going to go, and then I think we've handled that as like really well also. um I just think like God has blessed us so much, and those who have a hard experience, I still think, God's hand is on you, and like it doesn't mean it's void of blessings, but like luckily like we've had a pretty textbook experience with pregnancy and then the postpartum experience, and the delivery experience. um but I just wanted to say too, like I really worried about postpartum depression and like bonding with the baby and all these things, and none of those things actually should have been a concern for me because I didn't have to go through any of those things that I feared. But what were some of your fears about postpartum? Like some of the things that people said to you or you'd seen on social media that you were afraid about, with postpartum?
As it relates to you,
Like what you thought it was going to be versus what it was.
so I personally wasn't exposed to a lot of viewpoints on what it was supposed to look like, what it could have looked like. I know that mothers a lot of the time experience certain symptoms, feelings, thoughts. I honestly never really equated any of those things as relevant in your case. For some reason, I have this, innate confidence just in your ability to execute as a great mom,
Yeah.
and I think you just have a track record of being great at whatever you do and approaching things with commitment and seriousness and um, just a way that you do things. So I wasn't really worried about you having any sorts of feelings or off things about the baby or anything like that. I knew that the recovery and certain things like that would be a little difficult, but nothing you can't get
Yeah.
through,
Well,
especially you and I
we
together.
we'd seen those videos of the husband having to like carry the wife around cuz she couldn't move. Um
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I definitely thought that was I thank you for mentioning that. So I think that was the only thing that was kind of like out of the blue is you just like giving birth 1 minute and then just, walking the hospital and running marathons and launching a cooking show the next minute, right? That was a little freaky. So the level of independence that you assumed right after this whole process was impressive, right? I thought you would need sort of me more on the physical level to kind of
yeah.
get you recovered, but it was just a smooth sailing from there. That was impressive. Everything else, I had absolute confidence in you that you'd be fine.
I appreciate that. No, I definitely thought that I would be like bedridden for days. And some women are, but like luckily I didn't tear, or like I said, I experienced just like a textbook, pretty miraculous delivery just in how smooth that it went. And I don't take credit for that. Like I give all glory to God for that. That is not my own doing, but yeah, right after giving birth, I was running around cleaning up the hospital room, and all the nurses were like, "Maybe you should sit down." And I was like, "Maybe I should. Like, I don't know, I don't feel anything, but maybe you're right." So I just feel so lucky that I did regain myself and like I didn't struggle physically, and I thought that I would. And I could just, like, looking back at my last episode, I talked so much about the fear that I felt going into it, and if I could go back and tell myself one thing, it would just be to, like, have more peace and to trust God and to not be so afraid because it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be at all.
Yeah, yeah. No, 100%. I mean, I think, a healthy level of caution and nervousness, I mean, totally. I mean, your body's about to go through just an incredibly radical transformation. So
Yeah.
completely understand, but at the end of the day, you leave it up to God and you trust in the process. And
Yeah.
like I said, you've been incredible. And it wasn't just, a couple of days after the delivery either when, adrenaline just wore off. It was every day since then. I mean, you've been tired, exhausted, all things in between, but so very strong through the process that
Yeah, I appreciate that. And just kind of like staying on the topic of postpartum, there were definitely a couple of nights. Well, you have a bunch of pictures of me early on in the experience, like crying while trying to figure out pumping and crying while figuring out breastfeeding and
well, you do that
crying.
trying to figure out breakfast most days, so that wasn't really a red flag.
Yeah, I'm emotionally expressive, but like crying in the middle of the night, like it's hard, it's like just like real talk. It's hard. Like I didn't realize how I don't wanna say how selfishly I spent my time, but just how like, I could live my life how I wanted. If I'm going to bed at 11, I'm going to bed at 11, or if I'm going to bed at 1 in the morning, that's fine. I can sleep till 9 if I want to. I can sleep till 10, 11. Like, it doesn't matter, but then all of a sudden, I have this little fragile creature that depends on me to get up and to take care of her needs every couple hours. So there was definitely a moment, a couple weeks in where I just like cried in the middle of the night and you were with me. You woke up and were with me and encouraged me and supported me. But I think there's definitely like, there's a lot of dying to yourself that happens in the beginning of parenthood and in those early days of postpartum where like you realize it doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter like your schedule, your preferences or anything. Like, no, like you are solely on this planet at this point in time to take care of this baby. And I definitely think I've been a little bit of a spoiled princess for the past few years of my life. And so to like things are no longer about me, like there was a lot of dying to myself that was going on. And so like postpartum is definitely hard, but I never went into like the depression side of it. And I think it's because I had such a good support system. Like I have such a good support system. And my heart just goes out so much to the women that have to do it alone. And yeah, I could definitely see like deeper depression coming if I had to do this by myself or I didn't have your financial support or just like your emotional support the way that you're able to be there for me. So I just thank God all the time that the way my testimony worked out is that I found God and then I found my husband and then we had a baby. Um, because following God's design for things kind of protects you in that way. Not to say that hormonal changes might not happen and women might not still have all of those things and still experience the postpartum depression, but just I think that having like following God's design can sort of prevent you from the deeper, darker depths of what postpartum depression might look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, nothing is fatal at the end of the day. It may seem like it is, you may feel like it is, but it's not fatal at the end of the day. It's all normal.
Mhm.
Having a support system, like you said, is invaluable. I mean, whatever it is, if you don't have a husband or significant other, family, church community, whatever it is, doing it by yourself could drive a person crazy because, like you said, yes, you were a little bit of a spoiled princess before that, but at the end of the day, listen, as somebody who's been used to a certain level of lifestyle, okay, and it's not that you lived for yourself necessarily. It's just that you enjoy a certain level of freedom. You have things that you like, and it's completely normal to every human being. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, it no longer becomes a choice for you to change. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, I want to start going to the gym, and I strive to do it 5 days a week, but sometimes I slack and I skip and whatever else. But with a baby, you can't take any days off. You're forced
No.
into absolute performance 24/7 every
Yeah.
single day.
Yeah.
And I could totally see how that's difficult. I mean, look, people go through that, like you said, dying to yourself when when they come to faith. They realize, okay, who I was before is totally different than who I'm supposed to be now. And that's a
Yeah.
hard change. And then people get married and they realize, okay, well, that was easy. Now I have this other person that I owe the rest of my life to, total
Yeah.
commitment, okay, that I have to be not only different for, I have to daily change for. And then you have kids and you realize, well, that extra layer of responsibility is just weighing down on me a little bit, but it's a
Yeah.
necessary part of growth and getting to know God. Easier said than done, but it's an exciting time to be alive, you know?
Yeah, you talk a lot about success, like, on your socials and with the people you work with, and I love how you tell the story because 'cause you're like, "You wanna be successful? Get married after knowing the person for 2 weeks, and then become a dad," and, I don't know the exact rubric, but it goes something like that. It's like you take on these responsibilities and you have to live up to then providing for them,
Yeah,
so it's like
100%.
a blueprint for pushing yourself to be successful, but what are some of the hard parts for you about fatherhood in this season?
I would say for me, the most important, I would say the biggest pressure on me is the responsibility that I have for the household. I would say financially to begin with.
Yeah,
Not that we're needing for anything, but it's this constant, uncomfortable growth in just everything. I mean, you can't let things go. So it's whether it's the business or whatever else. I mean, it's a big responsibility.
yeah,
Um, so to me, I would say that's the biggest area where I'm still developing because you have to emotionally process those things too.
yep,
And thank God, things have been incredible in that way. But like I said, there's a big, big, big chunk of just, hey, like there's these two humans that totally rely on you.
yeah,
And then, of course, all of the responsibility that comes in with raising a baby. You want to be in control of everything. I think you and I are like 99.9% aligned on our parenting. I think I'm a lot more frantic and panicky about certain
yes,
things, and I totally own up to it. But just those things. It's your baby, and
yeah,
so just kind of establishing her in the best, safest, healthiest way is a big, big um, responsibility.
yeah. Yeah, I don't think we've ever had as intense of arguments. I won't call it fights because we don't fight, but we've had very intense arguments, since becoming parents that we never really had before because it's this person we love more than we even love ourselves. And, we have ideas about the way things should be. Both of us have different ideas sometimes. And so I think becoming a parent is it's such a test on a marriage as well. And it pushes you to grow in your communication and sometimes compromise and sometimes learning to trust the other person. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of hard things like relationally about that, but just so many blessings too. And the thing that keeps us through like every argument that we get into is remembering how this ends. We've kept that in mind since the beginning of our marriage. Like we know that this ends with us together, and so when you have that in mind, and and I think that that mindset just reflects like the commitment. Like we're committed, and so when you're committed, you know how this ends, and so none of those sort of arguments break us, but sometimes we do. Like sometimes we still disagree on something, but I don't know, somehow we've made it through it.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? Sometimes people have arguments for the sake of having arguments. And I think we do that as well, not with our baby though, but just like in regular life, whatever BS that may be, but at the end of the day with the baby, we have the same goal in mind. The purpose is the same. And
Yeah.
so a slight variation in opinion could lead into a heated exchange, but at the same time, you and I are on the same page that, the goal of the situation is to better this child, whatever it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
right?
So we've had lots of midnight calls to the pediatrician.
Yes, we did. Yes, and here's the thing too. I mean, I think that with something as big as having a baby, not knowing so much, things that may even seem so trivial and so small, confirm it. If you got a little doubt, which I do 1,500 times a day, and I feel like you're more stable in that way. But yeah, we've had a lot. Thank God for a pediatrician who never sleeps and
Yeah.
always answers our phone calls.
Well, that's a great thing to just like, I don't know if any new parents are listening right now, but we thought we would need like all this other support. We paid for Blueberry for like 24/7 virtual support from like pediatricians. And then we found our pediatrician after Mila was born because you have to wait until like they're born and you leave the hospital and then you go to your first pediatrician appointment. And then we found out like, oh, we have nurses on call 24/7, which has just been amazing for us as new parents who, have never done this before. So I was really glad to figure out that that was a thing as well. So we canceled our Blueberry subscription because we actually didn't need it with our pediatrician. I don't know if all of them do that, but we got really lucky with ours.
Yep.
Um,
Well, and by the way, also like a little tip for the new parents, it also extends to like the stuff you buy for the kid. Like, I'm sorry, but you don't need a nursery with 1,500 things in there just because somebody on TikTok said it looks good. You know,
yeah. We found out we don't really need the nursery at all.
yeah, like your baby is not going to use any of it
Yeah.
beside a bassinet and a wrap or
Well,
what.
now that she's 2 months old, we are on kind of the next phase of learning, like, where she's gonna sleep as she gets more intelligent and recognizes, "Oh, mommy and daddy are here." So that's kind of our new challenge, like, maybe the nursery would come in handy for those kinds of things now that sleep is gonna be more of a.
But don't pressure yourself into having everything perfect in
Yeah,
preparation
true.
because you're not
Yeah.
going to use it the first couple of weeks at the very least.
Yeah, all you need the first couple weeks is the bassinet. If you're breastfeeding, you don't need anything besides some burp rags, your boppy pillow, and
That's it,
some
diapers.
PJs.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's it.
and diapers. Yeah, we had so many things though, which a lot of them were bought for us from our baby registry and our baby shower. So I'm really thankful about that. But yeah, you don't need a lot of the fancy devices that are
Totally.
out there. So, kind of going into the next topic about the blessings of this season, like, what are some of your favorite parts about being a dad and just like thinking about Mila right now?
I just love being a dad. I just love that title. I
Yeah.
think I think that's my title. I don't think anything else matters besides that. Um, you just feel complete. It's interesting because, it's hard to convey that. I feel like I'm going to sound a little, ego here, but like I don't feel like I could adequately explain it to somebody without kids. I think it only you kind of relate it on that level when you do have kids. It's just like a feeling of wholeness and completeness, and your
Yeah.
life is totally different, and nothing else matters.
Yeah.
Before you're kind of chasing things for the for the sake of chasing them, and you want to achieve some status or some milestone. Here, you're trying to level up for the sake of somebody, and there's a greater purpose behind that, and it just feels very natural and organic that you're you have purpose in the world, you're useful in the world, there's somebody
Yeah.
out there who genuinely needs you, and that there's a reason why you do the things you do. You don't go exercise because you want bigger biceps, you go exercise because you want to be around for your kids and grandchildren.
Yeah.
You go
And
out there.
she's watching.
What's that?
And she's watching. We work out in the garage and she sits there in her bouncer and watches us.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, you do that for the kids, you level up financially or in your business or whatever else because you want to provide a good life for them. You level up psychologically and spiritually and faith wise because you want to lead by example. So
Yeah.
it's an unreal thing. However difficult it is, it's I mean that's how you know God intended it to be because your life unlocks a completely different level of being, and it's impossible to convey just in words to somebody not in that situation. So I would say just go out there and try and get yourself a couple of kids and see what I'm talking about.
No, you're so right. Like, I actually felt myself swell up with tears when you talked about the wholeness that you feel because you're right. It's like we could do all these different things and it's fun and whatever, but then you go home and just like living for yourself it can get a little boring. It can get a little stagnant. But now I get so excited about, like, I didn't give a crap about the zoo before. I didn't give a crap about a lot of these things. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, it'll be so fun to see Mila like look at the giraffes for the first time or like I love Disney and I get so excited thinking about having her there and like how she's going to experience it and every time we went to Disney it's like okay, I'm going to eat this and I want to ride these rides and now I'm thinking like oh, she's going to want to meet the characters. I'm going to be standing in these lines doing these things that
Yeah.
I don't want to do but I'm going to feel so full doing it because it's fulfilling a dream she has or something, meaningful to her and
Yes.
yeah, it's like all these little mundane things of life. Now there's like a little sparkle to it because you're experiencing it through a little person's eyes and wanting to create an experience for them.
Yes, 100%. And I think you have to have the right mindset behind this, right? Like the right mindset going into this experience. Because when you ask a question like, so how did it feel when you found out we were pregnant? It depends what mindset you start with. You and I treasure that experience, and not only did we look forward to it, we also understood the importance of it and how
Yeah,
much of a blessing it is. And it's not a burden and it's not something that you just have to deal with it and figure it out. It's a literal gift, a miracle from God that now
yeah.
you get to experience and be a part of. So I would say, yes, on some level, it's a major inconvenience. My gosh, has life been different?
We're late to everything. I have to change my clothes 3 times a day, her clothes 3 times a
You
day.
rarely sleep. You're always tired.
Always
You
tired.
know? Yeah, and I'm not saying you in general terms. I'm sorry to say I sleep great. Baby, he or she almost never gets sleep because of breastfeeding. But
Yeah.
there's so many of those things. Yes, they're genuinely inconvenient, but you ask, either one of us, would you have it any other way? And you know what the answer would be. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the question that started this specific conversation is what are the blessings you see in this season and as tired as I get, as overstimulated as I get, one of the biggest blessings of this season for me is that I do get to be home with her, that you've provided the space for me to be able to be home with her, watching her develop, seeing all the little new, like with the baby, every day, every moment, it's something new. Like now she's a gooing and ow, and making these sounds, mimicking us, little bursts of squeals as she tries to get our attention, grabbing things, like all these little things that I get to see and be a part of that I wouldn't get to experience if I was gone or doing something else or working.
yeah,
So it's such a blessing I get to be home with her and just watching her develop. I love all those little moments, and then the moments in the night too, like breastfeeding all through the night is hard. But there's little like sleepy newborn stretches I've gotten to experience, and some of her first smiles were in those 3 a.m. hours that I got to see first. So it's like, yeah, it's a little inconvenient, but like you said, it's a beautiful
yeah.
inconvenience.
Well, and I've never seen you be inconvenienced either. It's
Yeah,
always been this like, you know, burst of energy and gratitude toward her. It doesn't matter if you're starving and you're trying to get a couple of bites in and she's crying and you have to soothe her because I'm doing something else or at work or whatever else. Like I said, it never feels like she's a burden. Yes,
yeah,
it is inconvenient, but at the heart level of it all, she's the biggest blessing,
yeah.
and I think she knows that.
Oh my gosh, that just reminded me too, like, I feel like one of the ways that becoming a parent has changed me is it's expanded my heart. Like, I told you, and I mean, I don't wanna sound like a bad person by saying this, but I've seen the Riley's Children's Hospital commercials, like, my whole life I've seen those commercials, and I've been like, "Yeah, that's really sad." But then I kinda move on, like, I don't really, like, feel it emotionally. But now that I have a child of my own, I'm, like, sobbing watching these commercials on the TV, and there's just different ways that I feel like my heart has expanded. Like, I never cared about babies. I didn't give a crap about babies or kids or anything like that before. It's like, yeah, I appreciate them and, like, other people, like, should be nice to them, but I didn't have, like, this, like, beating heart for children, and now I just feel this love for children and babies that I never had before. It's like I just see how becoming a mom has it's like broken my heart open, and like it's growing it more and more every day too. Kind of switching gears a little bit. How has our marriage changed, would you say, since becoming parents?
I mean, I think we continue growing as we've done before. I think it definitely accelerated the rate of our growth because now we're really tag teaming things, and
Yeah.
um, now we have this mutual huge responsibility among us. And like I said, I wouldn't necessarily consider this like a radical change in an opposite direction. That like the pregnancy is what needed to save us or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's sort of like this natural progression of growth. And when you go through radical changes and inconveniences, for the lack of a better word, like this, you kind of get to test vulnerable areas of marriage, right? And
Yeah.
so it's been nice to know that we're pretty good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? For the most part, it's just been, kind of like adapting here and there, but never really anything fatal.
Yeah.
Like we weren't faking it all this time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're a stronger unit now than we've ever been. And I wasn't sure, like, it's one of those things you keep saying, like, you don't know until you experience it. But now that we've created life together, I feel so strong with you. And another thing that you can kind of take for granted your time together when it's just the two of you. Like, oh, I see you all the time every day, but now it's like if I get 5 minutes to hug you or snuggle you or like it's me and you skin to skin, like not being sexual, but like we're skin to skin for this moment because if you have a baby, you do skin to skin time with your
Yeah.
baby. So anytime I get with you or any date I get with you, any just like moment of hug or like kiss or anything, I feel like I cherish so much more now that I'm a mom and my time is like I said, like we're always either focused on her or it's kinda like survival mode in the early few weeks, and so, yeah, I feel like I take our time together far less for granted than I may have before when I had you all the time to
Yeah,
myself.
no, one of the most vibrant memories that I've had since you gave birth was we're like 2 weeks in or something. We have no food in the fridge because we just had no time to do anything. I mean, we're literally like eating the leftovers from like a couple of months ago, like whatever's in the back of that fridge. Again, just because like logistically we had no time to do this.
Yeah.
And now my parents volunteered to watch Mila for a couple of hours, I guess, and we go to Costco. And it was this like Disney World type experience walking through Costco.
Yes.
There's no crying, there's no like, I gotta get this.
Oh
It
my
was just a
gosh.
beautiful like hour and a half of us just hanging out at a Costco. You never
Yes.
know.
Oh my goodness, in, like, week 2, I think I was pumping and I was doing bottles because breastfeeding was really hard for me, but then I experienced a lot of problems with that. I don't know if I'll talk about that more in the future or not, but I ended up getting mastitis because I became an overproducer, so I stopped pumping, but anyways, I was pumping and giving her bottles, so we did have a little bit more free time in the first couple of weeks where Mama Tanya would watch her while we went out on a date, like on a Saturday night or we went to Costco. But now that I'm breastfeeding, I haven't really been apart from her since then. So I got to figure that out kind of going into the future. Like we haven't had a one-on-one date in a while, so we're gonna have to
Yeah,
figure that out.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But I feel a lot better now that I am exclusively breastfeeding. I don't have the overproduction problem that I created for myself. So, not to go on a random tangent.
No, it's all important.
So, kind of just on that note, though, um, and this maybe you won't understand like how it relates to the topic, but I'm curious to see like what your answer is. And the question is just like, when do you feel the closest to me or admire me the most? Not to like, I'm going to answer the question about you as well, but that could be an awkward ask, but I think it'll be a good
No,
question.
you ask me that every morning, so
What do you love about me, babe?
um, you know, I feel like there's levels to it, right? Because, we have one like whole relationship, and then that relationship is broken into different categories. So, like, you as a wife, you as a mom,
Mm,
you as a daughter in law, you as a daughter, and you excel in all of those categories. So it's hard to tell because, every one of those experiences is different.
yeah,
The way
that's
that you
true.
are with Mila on an individual, intimate basis is completely different than you and I are in it. So, I would say just at heart, how you excel in those areas uniformly and how you strive to push yourself to the limits, however uncomfortable that is, be it in relationships or, with yourself. I think that's the most vibrant, attractive thing that I admire you for. You are very quick to admit where you're lacking and very quick to readjust or strive to improve the situation. It could be the most painful thing for you, it could be the most uncomfortable thing. You would hate to admit it that you are wrong or just like lacking in any way, but this self-reflection that you will inevitably go back to and then try to make it better for yourself and for others, I think is one of your most central virtues. And I think that applies, and like I said, in all of those different categories as a mom, as a wife, and everything else. So, it's a generalized answer, but it's strategic in the sense that it's just who you are. And to me, that was important in choosing a partner. And I'm glad that that's the way that it worked out. Because, like I said, I mean, we got married 2 weeks in, so I really took a risk there. But
Yeah.
thank God it came out the way it did.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Sometimes it seems like I'm not listening or, I take offense when you give me that kind of feedback of where I'm lacking or what I did relationally. Like, I'll just tell you guys, I don't talk about this often. Not many people know, but we do all, like I mentioned in the beginning, we do all live together. We live with Vitaly's family, my in-laws. So there's some like natural hardship in that. There's blessing in that, but there's also just relational strife sometimes. I mean, it's the same as in marriage. It's not like if conflict is going to happen, it's when conflict is going to happen. And how are you going to handle it? Are you going to make it a constructive thing or a destructive thing? Like, is it going to be something that makes you stronger or is it going to break you? And so, having to move in all together with all these different people, there's definitely conflict that comes up. So, I don't know if you guys want to hear me talk about that more in the future, but it's definitely challenged me. And like, I always want to reflect God. Like, I want to reflect God's love. I want to be a good woman and, um, love like Jesus. And sometimes it is hard to do that. And yeah, so sometimes it's hard for me to handle that kind of feedback, but I will sit there and I will chew on what you said to me. I'll be simmering on it the next day. And yeah, I do always strive to improve in those areas because it's a new thing for me. For those who don't know, I grew up like a lone wolf. So having the whole family dynamic is new and it's something I prayed for and now I have it. So it's learning to kind of navigate within that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And kind of on that note, like about my feelings towards you in that way, I think um, when I feel the closest to you, because we all live together and there is constant presence of people and now a baby, I think one of the times, and maybe I didn't ask the question, like, super clear, but one of the times I feel the closest to you is, like, when we're doing our walks at the end of the day, and it's just you and me and maybe Mila, but she'll be sleeping in the stroller or something, and just kinda getting to debrief our day because I feel like we go through so much in a given day, and you have so much with your businesses and, just relationally and emotions we experience throughout the day, and I love those evening walks with you. And then something else I've grown to appreciate is like the midnight hours after Mila has gone to sleep and like say we didn't do a walk that day because not every day is going to work out perfect schedule wise. Um, and like I love when you just open up to me and you tell me about your day or like what someone said to you or I just love those, like, times when we just get to debrief with each other, and it seems like our
Yeah,
walks are a good opportunity for that, slash now when the baby goes to sleep.
yeah,
Um,
totally.
yeah, and then when I admire you the most, I think it is when we actually, like, find a way to get out and about. I love how you mentioned the different categories because there are different categories, like how you are as a father, how you are as a husband, how you are as a son, how you are in business. Like, I think I admire you a lot when we're out in business settings and just seeing how you handle yourself as a professional and like with your clients, like you're such a boss. And I love watching you in those settings. And then, yeah, watching you become a dad has just been something so amazing. Like, as a son, you can be a little annoying sometimes. As a brother, you can be a little annoying sometimes. You're an amazing husband. Like, I love you so much as my husband. You're like my best friend. We butt heads, we fight, we play, we laugh, we all the things. But then as a dad, it's like I admire you so much as a dad because you take it so seriously and you care for her so well and you love her so well and you're all the things that I wish I would have had in a dad. So I'm really glad that I don't want to choke up, but I'm so glad that I chose that for my baby and that my children get to have you as their dad, loving them.
I love you, baby. I feel the same way, you know that.
Ooh, okay. Kind of going to a lighter note. Some of the things from the newborn phase that you will just remember forever.
Her smiling was, like, the best, right?
Yeah.
Especially those first instances because, she's like a real human at that point, she's showing
Yes.
emotion, she's responding, she's reacting. I love when she holds her head. It's the best
Yeah.
feeling.
It's all wobbly, but she's doing it.
Yeah, and you know what? She's gazing at you with purpose. She knows what she's doing. Um, but yeah, I would say that, and just how fast she grows. You
Yeah.
know, it's crazy when you think newborn or infant or whatever it is. I mean, even a week later, totally different baby. You
Totally different. Because just this week, she began sleeping 6 to 7-hour stretches, and I always have to remind people when you're listening to this, like, this episode will go out a few weeks after we record it, so, like, so much might have even changed by then,
Yeah,
um, but, yeah, no, I totally agree with you. One thing that I was really shocked by was all the grunting, like, dolphin, pterodactyl noises I did not expect to be coming from the bassinet beside us. I had no idea newborns made those kind of
yeah,
sounds. Um, my next favorite is her burp position, her
mm,
newborn burp position when she's all,
yeah,
like, folded over in your lap
yes,
with
yeah,
her cheeks all squished
yes,
and
yes, the cheeks.
yeah, just vulnerable to what's going on, like, what she has to do. Um, yeah, her face after she eats, the milk drunk face when she just conks out in
Binges
her
off,
mouth.
yeah.
Yes, yes. And then I also yeah, I wrote down her first smiles, and she doesn't laugh when she's awake yet, but she's laughing in her sleep, so I'm getting a
She's
little
laughing in her
foreshadow.
sleep. Yep,
Yep, mama says she's, playing with the angels when she laughs in her sleep, but I think we'll be seeing that when she's awake, probably very soon.
yep. Now she's doing toys little by little,
Yes!
to them.
We just bought her first toy, she got the kick and play, so she's playing the piano with her feet, it's so cute.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, I love all the firsts. They just it's like a new excitement every day, no day is boring.
Yeah.
Um, okay, next question. This is about you. What is a dream of yours that not many people know?
A dream of mine that not many people know.
Yeah.
So, on like the grand scheme of things, like I personally just want to have like 100 acres with like a house per family on that property.
Yeah.
And it's just all of us existing with a bunch of like horses and alpacas. Yeah.
Yes.
That's really, I want to be independent of the location. I want to have a like an estate where everybody has their own space, but at the same time is there with us.
Yeah.
So that's really the ultimate thing. And then, of course, we talk about it all the time, but just, traveling around and showing Mila different places and experiencing different places,
Yeah.
um, and exposing her to the world. So there is a bunch of stuff, but I would say, yeah, that's the central one.
Yeah, that kind of freedom. That freedom, like, with land, that freedom to go and see and do, I totally agree, and we've aligned on that since the beginning. That's why you're so ambitious and you work so hard, um, to fulfill that dream. So I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Mine, I talk about it on here, so my people who listen to each episode, they know. Well, I haven't said, like, the next part. I actually feel a fear in my gut even saying it out loud. Like, most people on here know that I really wanna publish my book, but my next dream from that is that that book would one day be like a Netflix movie. Oh, that would just be like ultimate. Just how God redeemed, how God redeemed my life. And it just keeps becoming more and more of a testimony the more that we accomplish together and build our family and just reflect God's goodness. It's like He brought that orphan, that little abused girl from the drug addict family out of Indiana, out of the trailer on the hill in the cornfields. And now we have what we have and we're building what we're building. And we have this little baby and a house and life and marriage full of love. And it's like each
Yeah.
blessing and goodness that continues to come in our life is a continuing telling of that testimony.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
I
it's
hope
gonna
that
happen.
that
It's possible. Like I keep telling you all the time. You go back in time and think, would you have thought this was possible? Where you are right now, or like whatever other series of events.
yeah,
Going back years to when you were, in desperate need of change or whatever that may have been. And God has a really interesting way of doing things long term. Just
yeah.
got to remain patient and faithful, and ultimately, um, his plan supersedes everything.
Yep. Amen. And kind of on that note, the last question. There was one question I had, like a talking point, but I can't remember. Maybe it'll come back to me, but this one I have right here, and that is about Orthodox Christianity.
Mhm.
Like, why are you proud to be an Orthodox Christian, especially now as it pertains to being a father and what you want to see for Mila's future?
It's one of those questions where, why are you proud of being a dad? Why are you proud of being a man? Why, you know, because Orthodox Christianity specifically, it is the one and true church. To me, I'm very blatant about it. If you're a Christian, anything outside of the Orthodox holy tradition and faith gets a little shaky. And when it comes to faith, when it comes to something as important as faith, um, I don't think you should be playing around with any margins of error there.
Mm,
It's way too of an important variable. Don't want to mess it up, right?
yeah,
As it relates to me being a dad, it gives me an anchor. It gives me an ability to exist in the world according to how a man or a human is supposed to exist according to God and how He originally intended it to be. And that, hopefully overflows in all other aspects of life, whether it's marriage, relationships, business, and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of reasons to go into orthodoxy specifically. We love our Christian brothers and sisters, whatever denomination they're in,
yeah,
but I definitely urge people to do an in-depth analysis of themselves, their faith, where they're at, and make those decisions for themselves. But to me, there's no doubt this is the place to be if you honestly profess to be a follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
I know different people have different opinions, but what I've realized also about Orthodoxy is it doesn't matter what your opinion is. It doesn't matter what your level of comfort is.
Your interpretation
It doesn't
is?
matter what your interpretation. It doesn't matter what your pastor's interpretation is. I mean, just look up on Instagram and TikTok. A different church is going to have a different interpretation, a way of doing things, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't matter any of it.
Yeah.
What matters is how the faith was originally structured to be, who originated it, who professed it going forward, and what is the best way of exercising it. And Orthodoxy just happens to be that vehicle, not by choice, but by design.
Mhm. Yeah, there's like I feel like you answered the big theological part of this question, and then like little things I'm excited about. But real quick to just note on that, like I used to be the super theological one all the time, and then since becoming a mom, I've just been in like the survival mode of like motherhood and like motherhood things, and now you're the one bringing up theological concepts to me, and I'm like, oh, like I don't have the brain capacity for that right now. So
Well,
that's
and to that note, I'm sorry to interrupt. While you're no longer like translating the Bible from Hebrew, right, every day, you are very much embedded into your theological studies. It just may not be as much.
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
Like I'm
you
still
never
reading
lost
every
that
day.
spark. It's still at the center of everything you do, and you're so avidly researching and looking into things, especially with your conversion into Orthodoxy. And so, I would cut yourself some slack a little bit.
I'm hard on myself, we know that.
Yes, we do.
But also my mind is primarily on motherhood since becoming a mom, but yeah, somehow I still find time to read about orthodoxy and things like that. Um, what was I gonna say about that? I was gonna say, oh, the little things I'm excited about as it pertains to like being a mom and her following the Orthodox tradition is like something I've noticed in the non-denominational churches we went to is there's been like a children's school, so the kids go somewhere else during service and like that's where they are. So typically you don't see many kids like in the seats or in the pews around you. But in the Orthodox church, like your kids stay with you, and then Sunday school is after the service because you take the Eucharist with them, you do the whole liturgy with the children, and then they go to Sunday school afterwards. So I'm excited that she's going to be there with us. I'm a little nervous. We're going to church again for the first time since I gave birth this Sunday. Her and I are getting
You and Mila.
me and Mila. Yeah, you've been going, and we've been watching online. Um, so I'm a little nervous, like what it's going to look like when she's hungry or when she cries or different things like that. But I'm excited to be welcomed back. It's called the 40-day blessing, but we were waiting for her to get her vaccine, so we haven't been back yet. But we will be back this Sunday.
Mhm.
And then the following Sunday, July 7th, she gets baptized. So by the time this episode goes live, you guys may have already seen her face now online, but we've been waiting for that's what I forgot and I wanted to ask you about is we've been waiting for her baptism to actually show her face on social media just to make sure she has that covering. I wanted to ask real quick, and I know I was kind of on one question, but like, would you just explain? Because I've had a lot of people ask me why we made that choice, and I've mostly just like surrendered to your wishes with that. So I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so it has nothing to. It's not religious. It's not theological in any way. I mean, we do ask for blessings and permissions and opinions of our priest who kind of guides us to make sure that we're not straying away from anything fundamental. But it wasn't necessarily an issue that was brought up in church. I think it was mainly cultural. I don't think just, in my culture, we show faces until at least that point. On the
Hmm.
personal level, it's kind of two things. I want her to be before God than before everybody else. So,
Ooh, yeah.
so she has us, she has the inner circles of the family. And then before she gets introduced into the world on social media, especially, I want her to have that hedge of blessing from God. And then, you know, if it was my way or the highway scenario, I wouldn't have her on social media at all.
I know.
I think it's the silliest thing with all the weird stuff that goes on online and all the creeps and everything else. Like, I'm also a big believer that if you're really involved in my life, one way or another, you're gonna see her. You don't need to see her face out in social media. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, that's not happening. So, I just don't think people have any business looking at her in those very first moments. And it gave us an opportunity to kind of focus in and not be distracted by her being out there. But at the
Yeah.
very least, I wanted her to get to that baptism stage before we could, finally showcase her to the world. It's not a big deal, but I would say it just made my heart personally a little bit more, I would say, just accepting to that situation.
Yeah. No, I admire how protective you are of her, and the internet is a weird place. I definitely agree with you there. It was so hard for me not to post her, like, the first couple weeks it was especially hard because she's new and I want to share her with everybody. And but you're right, it really has allowed us to just focus on her, like, not taking videos of her that are videos that are intended to be shared. Like, our camera roll, like, RIP to our iPhone storage because we have so many pictures and videos, but we weren't thinking about, like, creating content out of her or anything
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
which can be a little weird sometimes. We will never sacrifice her for the sake of, like, creating content. Like, if it comes
Yeah.
naturally or there's, like, a fun idea, or she's good first, then pictures and videos. But
100%. 100%. Yeah, and nothing really changes as she gets on social media. It was more or less just, a thing that we agreed on, and I'm glad that we did it this way.
yeah, yeah. And I know I kinda jumped to that because I didn't wanna forget it again, but, just kind of like the reasons I'm excited for her to grow up in the Orthodox church. There's a bunch of reasons. I feel like for me, I fell so astray with not knowing and not having clear answers, and, there being so many interpretations of the Bible just in the non-denominational sphere, that I'm really excited for her to have a firm foundation of truth and for her to have a priest she can go to, for her to have a godparent that she can go to, a godparent that's praying over her. Just there's so many parts of the Orthodox tradition that I think are really going to bless her life, that um, and our future kids' lives as well, that I'm excited for them to grow up in that tradition. And maybe she'll be a little myrrh bearer one day. We'll get to see her up there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think there's a lot of beautiful parts about children in the Orthodox faith. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Amen.
don't want to skip over that. But so just kind of on that last note, wrapping up here for the listeners to know, our next episode is going to be with Jamie Bennett, going over some of the questions from my conversation with him. For those who don't know, he actually is Mila's godfather. Him and his wife Paulina are her godparents.
So
So
everybody be nice.
yeah, everybody be nice. We're going to be spiritual family here soon. So I'm really excited for that upcoming episode. And then I've been working really hard to get my priest on the schedule. He's just a busy guy. Like, they are opening more churches in, I think it's Africa, that they just
Kenya.
opened a church. Yeah, he's got some travels going on. So he told me in August we can think about getting him on the schedule. So I'm working on that, and we will have an amazing conversation with an Orthodox priest coming up very soon. Um, if I can't get them on the schedule before then, I'll find other things to talk about in the meantime. But yeah, is there anything else from you, baby, before we go?
No, babe. Thank you so much for this uninterrupted hour.
I know I haven't heard her cry or anything
I
yet. I wonder
know,
if
I
she's
know.
still
No, it's
sleeping.
it's 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 always nice, even though we're one door away. I always appreciate these opportunities to reflect, and this format kind of forces us to put all the worldly stuff aside and talk
Yeah,
to each other about the important things. So I love you so much. I'm so proud of you, and I think that we've got a heck of a journey ahead of us. And with God at the center of it all, there's nothing that we can't do.
amen, babe. I love you. I love that you did comment on the format. I think we are a little bit distractible. If we were sitting beside each other, we'd be a little bit more distractible. We may have started over a couple times.
Yeah, yeah. No, I appreciate it. In fact, maybe we just do this, offline more so that we can have more deeper conversations.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. Well, I love you and thank you so much for taking the time to be with me. And I don't know, maybe I should pray. I'm feeling kind of like I should pray.
Go ahead, hon.
Okay. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Dear God, thank you so much for just trusting us and choosing us to be Mila's parents. God, I know that she was your child before she became our child here on earth, and that ultimately it is our job to keep leading her back to you and guiding her to you. And I just pray that you would help us do that every day, and that we would be parents that would reflect you in our lifestyle, in our daily prayers, and our conversations with one another, just how we live, God, that we would lead a good life and example for her to live by, God. And I pray that you would keep strengthening our marriage, and yeah, just us as parents and our whole family bond. I pray for just protection, and I pray for blessing as she's about to be baptized here in a couple weeks, and just that your hand would be on this podcast episode too, and all the listeners who are listening today. God, I pray if there's any expecting parents that this would just bless them, and that they would be filled with your hope for this new journey of parenthood. And anybody who's listening, I pray that you would just touch their hearts today, God, and whatever was for them, that it would sink in deeper, and whatever wasn't, that they would just leave the rest, God. And I think that's all I have. So in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, baby. I love you.
Love you.